2, we looked at conversions, okay, between fractions, decimals, and percent. First thing, okay, we got, well, let's say we have a fraction like 2 over 5, okay? We were asked to create the decimal and the percentage of that value. Well, the thing is, when we're creating, okay, the decimals and the percentages, we can look at this fraction, and what we said is because we know percentages are out of 100, we can make an equivalent fraction, right? And then that'll help us find our percentage, okay? So here we have an unknown, okay? So 2 over 5 is something out of 100. So we need to figure out is how do I get from 5 to 100, okay? Another way that you can do this is using the fish method, so starting at 100, going up to 2, down to 5, and finishing at the question mark. There's so many different ways to approach or solve this problem, okay? So if I did the fish method, I would go 100 times 2, which is 200. And then I divide 200 by 5, which would be 40, okay? So now our question mark up here becomes, oh, I should erase the whole thing, okay? Our question mark up here becomes 2 out of 5 is equivalent to 40 out of 100. So now that we have it out of 100, we can jump to the percentage, and we know percents are out of 100. So it's going to be 40%. Then if we're moving backwards and we're trying to go from percent to decimals, okay, we start with our decimal point at the end, okay? And for decimals, okay, we need to move it 1, 2 times to the left, okay? So we move and bump that decimal over 2 times to the left when we're going from percents to decimals. So when I move that, my decimal becomes 0.40. Okay? So that's for fractions to decimals and percents. All right. Let's say I start with a decimal. For example, my decimal is 0.005. All right. I'm trying to figure out what the percentage is and what the fraction is. Well, first off, okay, I need to figure out what this fraction could be. All right. And in class, we talked about, okay, well, what I could do, right, is figure out what the percentage is, okay, because if I know I'm moving 2 to the left from percents to decimals, I know from decimals to percents, I'm moving 2 to the right. All right, so I'm taking this decimal point, and I'm moving it bounce once, bounce twice. There's my new decimal, okay? So as a percentage, it would be 0.5%, which is a fractional percentage that we've worked on in 4.1. Then from here, because we know percents are out of 100, I can now move to the fraction area, okay? And I can say 0.5 out of 100. And the problem we talked about in class is, yeah, that's all right. The value of this is fine, okay? But we don't like having decimals within fractions. So somehow we need to get rid of the decimal point. Okay? So we said there's multiple ways to do this. Okay, I could multiply. Okay, so instead of simplifying, reducing, I can multiply the top and the bottom by 2 to get 1 over 200. Right, that would help me out, and that would get rid of that decimal. Okay, or we can continue to bounce these decimals over. Okay, so if I have 0.5 out of 100, right, I can make it out of 1,000. Right, 10 times 100 is 1,000, so 0.5 times 10, all right, is going to be 5. Really, that's just taking the decimal and multiplying, so I'm moving that decimal over 1 spot. Okay, just mental math tricks that we pick up the more that we practice. Okay, but really what I needed to do, either one of these answers would be good, right? They both mean the same amount, right, but they don't have decimals in their numerators. Right, and yes, it gets a little bit messy as you're trying to do the work, but we want to make sure also that if, for example, they give me 32.5%, that we're able to convert it into a decimal. Okay, first of all, so we know when we're moving from percent to decimal, so we move 2 to the left. So let's take that decimal, let's move it bounce once, bounce twice. Okay, so as a decimal, it would be 0.325. So then as a fraction, we know percents out of 100. So this is 32.5 out of 100. Okay? To get rid of this decimal point, all right, we could do a number of different things. All right, simplest one right now, let's make it out of 1,000. Okay, if we multiply the top and the bottom by 10, okay, this becomes 325 out of 1,000 is the same or equivalent fraction to 32.5 out of 100. Okay? They mean the exact same thing, but what we wanted to do is get rid of this pesky decimal right here in the fraction. Okay, so we multiply instead of dividing. Okay, because we're not reducing, right? We're just trying to create an equivalent fraction that doesn't have a decimal. Okay, and then from here, I could technically reduce this fraction even further.